Check, check, check.
Check, check. Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out otheanthem.com. It's where you can find everything Oh The Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/Oh The Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/Oh The Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheek.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at Oh The Anthem on all your social networks.
I'm hoping for a show of no controversy. I can't say that's going to happen. This is Corey, and this is the Oh the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 371 of the Oh the Anthem podcast. Just as chock full of controversy as you will like. We're coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Use take two. This is you can find us on all available podcasts through anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem. The best way to go find the podcast on whatever service you use to listen to it.
Lucky for everyone, I expended all of my energy and my voice, apparently, yelling at Corey in the pre-show meeting. So I have saved you from all of that. But
this is why I still do the podcast, because it's an hour and a half where I don't get yelled at. It's the time, all the other time that we're not doing the podcast that I get, Corey, you fucking idiot.
I don't say you idiot.
Your idiotic ideas.
Yes, and the problem is I lose faith in humanity because I think to myself, if an educated, a guy who has time to read and learn and watch stories doesn't know this, then what then what chance does some poor, not poor money wise, but like, you know, someone who lives in Dundalk or outside of Baltimore who has to deal with kids and work and all of that stuff, what does she have? What chance does she have if you don't know the truth?
All I can do is try my best. I don't know what to tell you.
I am not your middle school
preacher
soccer coach, Corey. I'm not going to tell you that your best is good enough because, unfortunately, it's not. But it looks like their best is going to be good enough for the state of Israel, who is once again punishing, I guess, the people of Palestine for question mark. Here is how Israeli foreign policy works. They say, bomb the shit out of very poor people who we control all aspects of their lives, question mark, peace. And I'm not sure how this math works out for them, but right now they're in the first part of the equation and they're going to figure out the second part later.
I mean, I think as long as the second part doesn't involve intervention, then they're okay with it. I think.
So you grew up with siblings just like I did.
Yeah.
And you were the oldest of the siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until probably high school, you were also like the biggest of the siblings. When did Brendan like really catch you in height?
I mean, it wasn't that long. We're only a year and a half apart. So, you know, like it was sometime in that year and a half probably.
Oh, really? Oh.
I mean, like there was I guess a point at some point where I stopped.
Yes.
And then he kept going.
Yeah.
So he's not that much taller than me. We've always had a relative size.
Well, so I had a girl sibling, which you do as well, but you have a younger girl sibling.
Yeah.
So I had that genetic thing where like the boys stop and the girls just like keep going, but then they stop. And then we far surpassed them. I'm like a foot taller than my sister or something like that. So maybe not quite. 6 inches taller than my sister.
She's a tall lady.
I was going to say, she is a tall girl. So she was a basketball player.
Yeah.
Now, like your sister, you were probably maybe 8, 10 inches taller than her?
Probably.
Yeah, I feel like she's much shorter. She's much more like, I don't want to say normal, because my sister is absolutely normal. Just very tall. But nonetheless, so
normal is a disparaging term, Rob.
I had that experience where like 6th grade, maybe 7th grade, she just like caught me and then I stopped. And she kept going for another 2 years. And I stopped for a good 3 years of just like looking up to her. Not metaphorically, only physically. But my point being, when you were little, you had that time where you would just like beat up on your little siblings, always with that like glance over the shoulder. Mom and Dad coming?
Just to make sure someone bigger than me didn't come to stop.
That's exactly right. And I think that's what Israel's foreign policy is. It's like, we're going to keep beating up on the little guy, but just with a like, U.S. over here? No? Okay. Okay. And what we have right now is President Biden shouting.
Saying Israel has a right to defend itself.
From across the room. And Israel's looking over its shoulder, and much like
Whatever that thought is, just stop it
no,
there.
I was going to say, much like my dad, who the one time he saw me start the violence was because my sister called me a name, and she was just like, she started it. Like, so. And it was much like Israel. It was not a proportional response. It was me like jumping over the back of the couch into her face and then like starting a fist fight. Like I'm on top of her, hitting her. And not proportional, but he was like, she started it. Don't start fights you can't finish. But then eventually, like, came over and got me off.
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing that last part. It's just like, well, I mean, listen, the kids threw rocks at tanks. What do you expect? Of course they're going to drop Hellfire missiles on the AP office building. That's what you do. It's self-defense.
The problem with so much of conflict in the Middle East to most people who hear about it is I have no idea what's happening, and I don't have time to learn, and it's been going on for so long. I couldn't possibly understand how something from 700 years ago still ties into something that's happening today, but something that happened 30 years ago does not, you know? Like,
says the Catholic. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us.
Point. But I think what illuminated the minds of people this week is that it didn't look like it was a fair fight at all between Israel and Palestine. And when it looks like you're going out of your way to inflict as much punishment as possible, it doesn't sit well with people. And I mean, you know, the kids who are dying on both sides, it's just like fucking, you know, I'm sad and I'm disgusted, and, you know, I'm not trying to make a both sides issue of it. I'm just saying that the fact that there are literally children on each side of this who are dying.
Yes.
Who had no, you know, like you don't wake up, you're not born into, you know, hating Israel or Palestine. Like, you know, like no, but nobody's born with hate. Like it's
true.
It's taught to people.
It's trained into the Israeli children at a very young age. They actually take school classes out to write messages on the bombs that they drop on Gaza. So, yeah, that's the thing they do.
Again, I get it. You don't. There needs to be a period here where, you know, people cool down a little bit. That's the obvious solution to me, is that there needs to be that throughout my life there has been many conflicts in the Middle East between rival countries, and it goes on for a while, and then, you know, like there's a moment where everyone sort of looks at each other and says there has to be a ceasefire, there has to be a stalemate, there has to be a time where we are not actively trying to bomb each other. And let's at least, you know, for most of my life, at least pantomime like we're trying to make peace. Whether or not there is peace probably will never happen, but the temperature needs to be brought down.
I have an alternate plan.
I don't like where this is going.
Fact
that it's an alternate plan is already.
What if we instead, because so everybody knows, we give $3.8 billion in military aid to Israel. This breaks down to several $1 million a day in military aid. If you're watching the news and you're seeing artillery being fired in Gaza or at the West Bank, the likelihood is that is an American artillery piece firing American-made shells into Palestine.
Right.
If you see a helicopter, it's likely an American helicopter firing American bullets or American rockets at Palestinian children. If you see a plane, it's likely an American plane dropping American bombs on Palestinian children. So my counter argument is, what if we, for every dollar and every bomb, every plane, every helicopter we give to Israel, we give one to Hamas? And we just say, instead of this bully beating up on the little guy, we just give them both the weapons and let them fight it out.
No, that's a terrible idea. And I would argue that I am fine with because the pretense of the giving weapons to Israel for this whole time has been going back to that old quote: Israel has a right to defend itself.
Sure. From
it
children throwing rocks at tanks. Yeah.
It has been very lopsided for a very long time.
Well, I'll remind you though, the world was at relative peace for 60 years when the Soviet Union had nukes and we had nukes, and there were these little conflicts here and there. Vietnam comes to mind, Afghanistan, but
India and Pakistan,
small conflicts. But India and Pakistan never blew up into a regional war because both sides had nukes. Now Israel has nukes. And they have a lot of weapons provided by the U.S. Mm-hmm. What if we gave Hamas nukes and some tanks and some guns? Now there's an equivalency. And maybe Israel's like, well, we could bomb Jenin, but really the only thing that's there is the concentration camp that we built. So they could bomb Tel Aviv. And maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should just, now that they are equals to us, we should just consider this two-state solution thing. See how it works out.
I'm not ready to to go that far. It's like the ideal of being leftist is all that it takes. Sometimes.
I'm not here to argue.
I mean, like I don't think the solution is if it continues like this, arming either side.
Okay.
Because Israel has done well for itself as a developed nation and has its own army and has people who gladly serve in it.
A lot of Americans in that army and a lot of American arms make up that army. But sure.
I mean, if America could get away with Mexicans coming and fighting in our wars for us, then we would. It would have happened.
I don't want to ruin your
no, I'm saying
there, because there's a lot of Mexicans who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan under the pretense that they were going to be given citizenship after.
Oh, yeah.
And then got deported after they got out.
Yeah,
so,
once Trump took office.
Yeah, we do that.
I saw a couple of them.
It's a thing we did.
Get deported at the airport.
Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, you have to say to yourself, what is the right, most equitable, just way of getting to some sort of peace? And I'm gonna tell you, it's not gonna happen tomorrow, and it's not gonna happen next week or next month or next year. It's gonna take a long time if there was ever to be any kind of commitment to peace in the Middle East, especially between Israel and Palestine, because the stalemate is so unbreakable. So
okay, break the stalemate. Third plan: rather than arming Hamas, all the nations of the world
arm Palestine.
No. We all just show up.
Arm the non-Hamas Palestine.
We all show up in Israel, in the area of the world that used to be referred to as Palestine. There's a really nice valley there. It's called Armageddon. And we go there and we just have it all out and see if we can fill that place up with blood. Because listen, if you want peace, everlasting peace, Corey, now you know this. There's only one way. And that's when Jesus comes back. And the only way to get Jesus back,
I don't think that's going to,
is to fill the blood up to the horse's bridle in the valley known as Armageddon. So
I don't think that's going to work between those two nations.
Oh, not just those two. Everybody. Russia, United States, we can figure out our stuff. China and India can figure out our stuff. India and Pakistan can figure out their stuff. Just everybody bring your buddies in, and then we're just going to choose sides. We'll kind of maybe we'll make 3 or 4 sides, and it'll be like Hungry Hippos. We'll just into the middle and into the fray, and we'll see who's left at the end. We'll do it the way they used to do it back in the day. Just charging into a fray and filling that blood up in the valley, and then Jesus will come back. It'll be great.
There's been enough blood. I personally will never understand the desire for warfare. And I just can't, there's big issues on both sides. There's things that will be almost impossible to break. And tensions will get high as they have in the past. All of these things will remain true until somebody decides that they want to make an effort. Now, the worst part about any discussion about the Middle East is that you can't talk about it with the same 1,000-yard view you would a singular Ravens game or something like that, just because there's so much more that would come into any conversation about, where we've been and how we got here and stuff like that. Aside from anything, just the position we're in right now, like you said, we have the 1979 peace accords between with Carter and Israel and Palestine that acknowledges Israel's right to exist. So we have that. Let's try and work peacefully. And I hope that people on the ground will, perhaps this will inspire people to look at it a different way and try and do better, because at the end of the day, the executive branch of Palestine has been a corrupt mess and hasn't even had an election since 2 decades ago, basically. Hamas has taken over a lot of political power within Palestine. Netanyahu is just as corrupt on the other side. This isn't I really try and look at these issues not so much as who's right or who's wrong, because there is no right and there is no wrong. It's just continuous violence and continuous corruption. And until people with purity of heart decide that they want to actually try and make things better, there will not be. And I know you're laughing because I'm trying to. I'm speaking idealistically about the idea of one day there being peace in the Middle East.
Yeah,
and I understand how stupid that can sound, and I understand how infuriating that can sound to somebody who is on either the Israeli or the Palestinian side of this thing. I'm saying, if we're going to continue as a human race together into the future, it would behoove us
to get rid of religion. Yes, 100%.
If we can find a way to not kill each other so frequently.
Yeah,
and
I will acknowledge.
I think that at the end of every war, nobody feels like they got what they get. Nobody feels good about it at the end. Even the victors don't feel like there's loss. There's what we became on the other side. There's things that come with war that are far beyond just the lives that are lost.
And not in America. Coming out of World War II, coming out of Vietnam, which we lost, we thought we did awesome. So,
yeah, but not everyone thought we did awesome. That's not just because the Pentagon thought we did awesome doesn't
World
mean
War
that.
II.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Vietnam.
No, I mean Vietnam, yes, but what about World War II?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, in the short term, there's a lot of, we did really well here.
Yep.
We completed all our objectives. We didn't get in too early. We got in when we were brought into the conflict, and we ended it. If we're talking about it from a United States perspective. My grandfather was on the Indianapolis saving people in Pearl Harbor. I don't, even though our casualties in World War II were not as overwhelming as they were for other countries or people who got invaded or occupied or anything that might have, that went along with it. The U.S.'s impact wasn't as high, but I can still feel bad for the people in Pearl Harbor who died. I can still feel bad for the people who went to war, who actively went to help defend
hypothetical for you
American interests throughout the world.
Hypothetical for you.
Yeah.
Your grandfather was on the Indianapolis.
Yeah.
But he wasn't on the Indianapolis when it sank at Coral Sea.
I'm sorry. He was the first boat to the Indianapolis.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
I don't know if I misphrased that, but
yes. And nonetheless, so let's say that World War II, we never developed a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And we stalemated that war, which is what it would look like it was heading towards. And so at some point, some Japanese soldier killed your grandfather in war.
Yeah.
And was your dad around before that?
No.
Right. So let's say that your grandfather came home on leave, and dad was put into existence, and then he went back for year 15 of the war, or whatever we were in at that point, and was killed.
Yeah.
And now Dad grows up hating Japanese because they killed his father and took him away.
Mm-hmm.
So he, of course, decides he's going to go do the same thing. He's going to go fight the Japanese. And while he's on leave, he meets a beautiful woman at a theater at home or in New York and says, you know what, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And he romances her and, things happen and you're brought into being. And then he goes back overseas and he's killed by some Japanese guys. So now the Japanese have killed your grandfather and your father. They took your grandfather away from your father before he could even become a dad. Now they taken your dad away from you before he could be your dad. And you've grown up without a father your whole life. And in fact, you had, some uncles around. You had some guys who stepped up to be father figures. But one by one, they were taken away to this war, and some Japanese guy killed them.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood that you are also going to go kill some Japanese? 40 years after the conflict starts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if there's an active war still going on
active
with Japan,
war still going on.
I mean, there could be a high likelihood of it. I mean, we're effectively what we're talking about there is either a nature versus nurture kind of thing. Because if I take, if it's me, if it's the same person that I am here, just transplanted into this alternate timeline,
absolutely, then
I still will always try to choose peace. And I will always try and find...
They killed your father.
I understand.
And your grandfather and uncles and every male who has ever meant anything to you in your life. And if they didn't kill him, that, Uncle whoever has no leg and no arm because some shell took that off. And you got another guy who hangs around the neighborhood who's really nice to you, but on July 4th, when the fireworks go off, he turns into a shriveling, sniveling child because he can't handle the fireworks.
Yeah.
The Japanese did that to everyone you've known in your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand how there is a part of me that could conceivably go to war, could be a soldier, could fight that fight again. Mm-hmm. But the difference would be, I know me on a baseline outside of the realms of what interacts with me, that I would prefer not to go to war. I would prefer not to fight in war. I would prefer not to kill. Because I have personal feelings about how that is not the solution.
And
but
you transported into that timeline is the you that didn't have.
I'm saying this would be in out of 100 timelines, this would be how I'm born every time, because this is how I feel from a base level.
You think?
I believe.
Because you didn't have your father killed by and your grandfather killed by Japanese.
Right. I'm saying I think the nurture part of this is the what kind of talk is there about the Japanese throughout my entire life? What
not
kind
good.
of,
Not good.
Oh, I know. And I'm saying if the overwhelming
words that I won't use on this podcast to
right.
describe them. My grandfather used those words.
The one line he won't cross. The idea that we continue in this process of I go to kill because so many people harbor the past, and I understand that in the past, quote unquote, in the situation we're talking about has far-reaching implications that specifically outline the stalemate between these two, and the reason why there's an almost like unpassable bridge here between where we are today and peace. But I am never going to give up on the idea of trying, because to me personally, I could be in favor of Israel and not want innocent Palestinian people to die. Like,
sure.
I can.
I mean, I don't think that you can. No, but I understand the argument.
I mean, like,
if you support a fascist government, you cannot also be supportive of the people to whom they are trying to exterminate.
And I mean, this is the to me, one of the biggest problems that we've had during my lifetime of conflicts between Israel and Palestine have all involved the carrying of the grudge, the carrying of the what?
Again, you and I are built different because I would not exist in this timeline. If I did exist, first of all, my point being, the whole point of this example was that in 1948, Israel became a country, immediately went to war against its neighbors, and then started imposing its will on the Palestinians. So we're essentially the same amount of time. There have been generation after generation after generation of men killed by Israelis, and then the son grows up and he's angry and he's killed by Israelis, and his son grows up or his nephews grow up and they're angry and they're killed by Israelis. And there is no 37-year-old version of me, because at 8 or 10 or 15 or 20, I would have been killed by Israelis. And if I was lucky enough to make it to 37, the chances are that I would have had a child by now who would have been killed by Israelis. So the likelihood is I'm going to war against Israelis. And I don't understand how anyone cannot feel that. It's like, as much as all of my strong feelings against police officers and how I feel about them, I've never taken a violent action against anyone. My nephew will be seen by most of the world as being a black man. And if some cop somewhere were to harm him, I will do things that will make law-abiding citizen look like an episode of Barney. I will go insane, and I will become the most violent person you will ever see. There is something bubbling within me that I actively keep down, and the idea of him being harmed or being placed in that situation where my dad has been killed and my son has been killed by the same group. If you can't put yourself in that mindset and being like, well, I have nothing left, so I'm going to strap a bunch of C4 to my body and walk into a group of soldiers and blow them up. Yeah. I understand that mentality. Because if you have nothing left, I'm going to harm them as much as I can and escape this reality. But we're built different.
No, I can understand why somebody feels that way. And I can understand, like, the problem is that we with the example of the cop there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of the day, if you were able to exact revenge in some sort of law-abiding citizen way,
sure,
you would feel some sort of temporary feeling of justice. Like there's a tit for a tat.
Okay.
There's a retribution for a deed done. Mm-hmm. That won't make you whole inside. That won't take away.
And this is the difference between you and I. You expect that there is some expectation of feeling whole. It's not about that. It's about harming. It is harming them as much.
But then the son of the cop or the brother of the cop or the wife of the cop or whoever.
In this example, there is no son, there is no daughter, there is no wife, there's no brother, there's no mother, there's nobody.
He's just an orphaned cop.
No.
Adopted by the Baltimore Police Department.
End his bloodline. I will find every living relative and harm them in the most unimaginable ways.
But why?
Things that would give you nightmares.
What did any of them do?
He killed my nephew.
Yeah, but what did his son do to impact that? I mean,
he shares his bloodline. That's it.
See, this is the problem. We have to. If we're going to think this way forever, we're going to forever find ourselves in the same kind of conflict.
The problem is that also the harm is to him because he comes last. I take his son, I take his wife, I take his mother, I take his brother, I take everyone, and I want him to know that it's being done because of him. And then you take him last. Unless you can get them all at the same time. Like, you get them all and you knock them all out except for him, and then you tie them all to the couch and then burn the house down around them so he's conscious and sees everyone dying around him. That would be really fucked up. But that is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about.
I mean, when we started this whole conversation, I said I'm sad, I'm sick. Like, that wouldn't change just because I know you in this situation. Like, if this had happened, I would be sad, I would be sick, I would be very upset because at the end of the day, the problem you have is not with this guy's family.
Right.
The problem you have is, in honesty, not even necessarily this guy. The system in which allowed him to act like this.
Oh, well, I mean,
is what created.
That's what comes
next.
next.
That's the nurture that I'm talking about.
That's what comes next.
When I'm talking about the nature of re-nurture thing.
The Claymore outside of the police station, and
if you really want to
C4 in the cars,
to try and find any possible path to peace, you have to just be willing to not like let things go, but you have to be willing to make peace with where we have been in the past to be able to find the future. Like there's no way to get to the sun shining on the other side.
And that again is the difference between us, because I think that the only way peace comes is when they fear you, and history shows us the only time peace comes is when they fear you as much as you or your people have feared them. That is the only time that we make peace, ever. We made peace in Vietnam because the people at home were scared to send their sons to Vietnam and die. That was it. And when the government didn't have the support of the people anymore, you can't continue the war. So you have to erode the hearts and minds of the people so that they do not support whatever it is that you're fighting against. And once the support is gone, then the action stops.
I mean, you're talking about eroding, the support and stuff like that. The Vietnam War was never popular to begin with. It had more had more support at the beginning and then quickly faded.
Yeah.
Much the same as, I don't think there's anyone that's happy that there's conflict. Like if you said wave your magic wand and Israel and Palestine aren't in conflict anymore, I think everyone would wave that wand. Everyone, this is in the best interest of everybody. I'm not the person to give you your solution. I'm not the person to say, like, here are the terms by which peace will be found.
I am. That's what I'm saying. People should listen to me.
The peace will have to come from well-meaning people in Israel and Palestine. And we can't even begin to think about that possible future until we elevate good-minded people of Israel. As long as Netanyahu and his corruption continue, as long as the varied levels of corruption that exist throughout the Palestinian government continue,
and as long as the U.S. continues to send weapons to fund one side of the war,
yes, if they're gonna use the weapons we give them to have a week like this, then I'm not inclined to let them use our weapons anymore. And I'm. This is nothing to do. Israel will find a way to defend itself without our weapons. It'll find a way. It'll do what it has to. It's a upper class country in terms of its wealth and ability to.
Or they'll find out that they never needed
to arm itself militarily.
Or they'll find they didn't need self-defense to begin with. When you stop beating up on somebody.
I mean, I just think about all the times where, like, I could just die in some sort of conflict that means nothing. Like, you could be, I could just be walking down the street and some guy who wants to take vengeance out on somebody else is firing shots inside of a dry cleaner or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of the bullets just goes flying outside and it hits me in the head and I'm done. And, I meant nothing but peace, and here I am in death. I understand that for a lot of people, peace doesn't come without death, but there needs to be an alternative way of thinking about this, because then the death just begets more death. That's if you want to just chalk off the fact that a certain number of people are going to die over the idea of this conflict must continue forever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could do that, but I would be like my preference is every day, let's try and keep people from dying for no good reason. Like let's find a way to more peacefully come to our options. And I know I sound like an
Beatnik?
idiot.
No, this is a beatnik.
No, and
somebody your dad would have made fun of in the 70s.
No, and I'm sure, and again, I'm sure there's people who would listen to me and say that, like, well, you don't understand. Palestine did this. Oh, you don't understand. Israel did this. Like, at a certain point, like you ever get to the point with like a couple. I know it's an awful example, but do you ever get to the point with a couple where they're just about to break up and they've had so much drama and you've been there.
I'm usually the couple. Yeah.
But at a certain point, you get to the end and you start saying to yourself, like, do I even want to continue? Like, do I even want to try and make this work? And then you start having those conversations with yourself of like, man, I was ready to end it all over this moment that now that I think about it a year and a half later, it was the stupidest fucking thing. Why did we fight over that? And like at that moment, it was everything. It was you couldn't move forward without it. Like we just need to.
I know like 60 ways how to hide a body. I would never have that.
We just need to have a little bit more empathy, a little bit more of a desire to actually do something. And that's why I think there needs to be serious talk of a ceasefire. And I think that, if Biden wants to be considered a president who's trying to lead and trying to make things work, there's a way that you can look for peace and be an ally of Israel at the same time.
It's funny you mentioned that, Corey, because another story. By the way, Corey said we're not going to do 7 hours on Israel, and I got 40 minutes for you guys, so there you go. But another story that came out this week involves President Biden and the hypocrisy of the United States. The person you see on screen here next to me is, of course, President Biden and the military junta leader of Myanmar. Myanmar, who is now under fresh sanctions from the United States because they are continuing their genocide of the Christian minority in that country. Mm-hmm. And again, this is hypocrisy because we continue to support the right of Israeli self-defense against self-defense, which is in fact genocide against the Palestinians, but we're sanctioning Myanmar for doing the exact same thing. But Myanmar is a Muslim majority against a Christian minority, and in some part also a different Muslim minority. And Israel is a Jewish majority against a Muslim minority. So different, completely different. Not the same thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm for eliminating this in whatever way it makes sense. The politics of Israel is what changes, all of this. Like, and I'm not saying that. There just needs to be. I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, Corey, I'm feeling a little stressed.
Yeah.
And I feel like you and I need to relax a little bit. So let's roll a J. Let's go on down to the Gold Coast. And, Mississippi they legalized weed. So I feel like it'll be a nice little vacation for us. COVID's over. We can go do that.
Yeah. So about that, the medical marijuana bill that had, or the vote that had just passed in Mississippi. What are we calling that? Like it was a proposition, I think. It wasn't like an amendment.
Don't call it, but in California we call it a proposition.
Yeah.
So let's just call it a proposition for our sake. That's
right.
What it is. It's a bill started by the people and put on the ballot. Ballot measure is what
ballot measure.
Ballot
maybe,
measure is what they call it, I think. Yeah.
So there was a ballot measure in Mississippi during the most recent election as to whether or not to make medical marijuana legal in the state of Mississippi.
Failed miserably because they're Christian. They don't want that.
In fact, it didn't. It succeeded wonderfully. Somewhere in the area of 75%. I can't remember exactly. It was 73, 74, something like that.
That's a majority.
Yeah, it's a good majority. That's enough to get almost anything to pass almost anywhere, even with the 2/3. Some ballot measures require like 2/3 and stuff like that. So that even passes that hypothetical.
And that's almost as many people as who support the right to abortion in some way, shape, or form in this country. But we'll get to that. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
But the Mississippi Supreme Court ruled this past week that it wasn't valid and that it will not go forward.
Just wait, folks. Just wait.
Because written into Mississippi's Constitution, they argued that there needed to be a vote from all 5 congressional districts of Mississippi.
That seems legit, Corey. Now,
in order for any ballot initiative to pass,
a ballot measure needs to be voted. 74% is not impressive if you don't have all of the people voting on it. So
right.
I
mean, if one congressional district doesn't vote for it, I don't see how you could continue going
at all. Right.
So the funny thing about that is that Mississippi now has 4 congressional seats instead of 5. And rather than saying, well, they got to vote in all 4 congressional districts, so therefore the will of this law is good and we should go forward with it, they ruled that this law should not become enacted because, it didn't reach the 5 congressional vote or district threshold that we have in our Constitution, and therefore we must say goodbye to medical marijuana. To which a lot of people said, what about all the other ballot measures that have passed and haven't been called on this kind of thing? And Mississippi's like, shh, it's gone now. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
All those people sobering up without having marijuana were like, wait. This has happened a lot. I don't understand.
Sir, I don't know if you know this, but you're harshing my buzz.
Corey, I'm going to give you one guess at the racial and gender makeup of the Mississippi Supreme Court.
Have you looked it up?
I have, yes.
I'm going to... how many members do we know?
7.
7?
Yes.
So I'm going to imagine 7 white men.
Okay.
Or maybe 6 white men and 1 white woman.
There you go.
I didn't know if they had managed that, because perhaps they had a woman and then she died, like a la Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and then they replaced her with a...
To be fair, I didn't look up the actual makeup. I just found pictures. So there is a chance that there are several white women who just look like old white men. I can't say for sure, but there was one who was clearly a white woman and the rest were white men. And they're all white and they're all old, and it ain't California. They're not the ones who are voting for marijuana. So sorry about your luck. That's the kind of thing where you come to the decision and then it's like, all right, folks, let's do some research and figure out how we can make this not happen.
You know, it's funny. I was just trying to come up with a joke about, like, maybe we should send AOC down there, like just to get her to try and become a Supreme Court justice in Mississippi. And then in my mind, I kept saying, like, oh, let's just get her an apartment in Tuscaloosa. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's Alabama. Well, Talladega, no, that's Alabama too. Birmingham, again, Alabama. Your state is less important than Alabama, which is basically the least important state we have. So I don't know. It's just like this. It's amazing sometimes. Like this happened, and just like people who say the Constitution is everything, and it's just like, well, I don't like this personal one that they decided to figure out a way around, so my Constitution doesn't work for me at this point. But
also, I would just like to say, have you not read about Freedom Summer? Do not send AOC to Mississippi. She will never make it back to New York.
Had to have some protection to.
Well, I listen. A bunch of people went down to Freedom Summer and had a lot of protection, and 3 guys ended up in a marsh. So one of them was a priest.
So maybe
care.
not.
They don't care. Don't try to do equal rights down there. That's not how it works. And I guess kind of related, but unrelated at the same time.
Still Mississippi. Still horrible.
So I know a lot of people who've said the last year has basically been season 7 of Black Mirror was amazing. Instead of showing it to us on Netflix, they actually had us live through it. Isn't that crazy? And I was trying to figure out, is this the next season of Handmaid's Tale, or is it the next season of 1984/Brave New World. And it could be either, because yet another fun law that has come out of Mississippi is the 15-week abortion law, which said that 15 weeks is the line no matter what. In all cases, if you didn't know you were pregnant and you were pregnant by way of rape or incest, does not matter. Jesus wants you to have that baby. Take it to term. Now, Jesus didn't feel the same way about Dick Cheney's heart, which he replaced 3 times and is still alive, I think. Is he still alive? I mean,
I think so.
Either that or he's frozen somewhere like...
He was on Fox News during the election, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so he's still alive on his third heart of various designs. I think the current one's man-made. He doesn't have a pulse. It just whooshes blood to his body.
It's like an electric vehicle engine.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. But so this fun law out of Mississippi essentially says there is no excuse. Now, Roe versus Wade held that the
Another like Googling Dick Cheney alive question mark?
All the way, by the way, probably popped up because it searched a lot. People aren't sure. But so this law, Roe versus Wade, said 22 weeks is viability, and or 26 weeks is viability.
Yeah, living vice presidents. Mike Pence,
Yes.
Dick Cheney, Al Gore. Surprising, Dan Quayle didn't run himself off a road or anything like that after the whole potato nonsense.
And also, I could do without 2 of those.
How funny is it that we have Trump like writing like fucking angry blog posts about how the Oscars need a host.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Dan Quayle is like looking at a wall because he misspelled potato once in front of school children. Like the lunacy of this country is beyond reproach.
Or the fact that Al Gore won an election but gave up the fight for that same election.
Yeah.
And Trump lost an election and will not give up the fight for that election. But yeah, so 26 weeks is viability under Roe versus Wade. Now that has changed somewhat, and viability today is something between 22 and 24 weeks. But we basically live by the 26-week rule. Mississippi law is 15 weeks, which is brain activity, heart activity, and movement. So, yeah. So essentially, they did this law as a challenge to Roe versus Wade. The lower court in the federal district, not the Mississippi State Court, the federal district court said, it is
the Chief Justice in a barrel with suspenders just walks out and he's just like, I see no reason to overturn this law.
The federal district court judge essentially said, I'm looking at the
Chief
notes.
Justice, your son just got arrested for pot. What about that law? Can we get it back?
He doesn't need that.
He's
He
white,
knows
he's
the
fine.
sheriff. He's
He's
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
He ain't
He's
going to
also
jail.
white in Mississippi. Jury trial. Anyway, essentially the district court judge said, I'm looking at the notes from you passing this law. It's clear that you are making this law knowing it's illegal facially because you want to challenge Roe versus Wade. And this should not be allowed to stand. So, of course, the Supreme Court of the United States said, we'll hear it. Now, my hope is that we don't know who voted to hear it. If it was Alito and Roberts, it may be that there is going to be a vote of like, don't do this. This is the one and only one we are going to hear that is illegitimate on its face, and the challenge is only to precedent. And we're going to stick with precedent. So don't waste our time because we're not going to hear any of these anymore. That would be nice. The likelihood is it's Thomas and Coney Barrett saying, like, we think it's time to look into this Roe versus Wade situation, and women are going to lose reproductive rights.
Well, I mean, like on the face, you feel like there's 4 votes to overturn.
I think there's 3 votes to overturn. And then I think there's several in the middle who have to ask themselves, do we give credence to a law that was clearly passed just to challenge a previous Supreme Court precedent?
I mean, like we have Thomas.
Yeah.
We have Coney Barrett,
who theoretically will be on the side of overturning. Yes.
Yeah. Has been
vocally
trying to get it for all her career.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
In a similar regard. And
what
then
are
the question
odds
is
Kavanaugh
really
has paid for an abortion in his life, like high, right? Like 70s. 80. He knocked up some girl and paid for an abortion, but he's anti-abortion now. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, who can really say? There's a lot we didn't get to learn about Brett Kavanaugh.
He likes beer.
And, I think a lot of people just sort of assume Gorsuch, even though of the three that Trump nominated, he seems to be the least down that road, I guess we should say.
And he has, in previous cases, said that he sided with the liberals only because this is facially a challenge to precedent, and I'm not going to participate in that. So I don't agree with them, but I side with them separately on the issue of the precedent has been set, and we are not here to overturn it unless there is a legitimate reason to challenge precedent, not just give us a new decision.
Yeah,
Same for Roberts and Alito in ways. So
yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in Roberts to actually do.
We'll see.
I mean, it's.
You think that the peacemakers in Israel and Palestine are just going to stand up and make peace, but you don't have faith that Roberts will abide by his previous decisions of I'm going to stay in the middle and no, we're not going to turn precedent.
Well, again, because I mean, the abortion issue is something that
it's harder than peace in the Middle East.
No, I'm saying that the similarity, I guess, at the very least, is that no matter what side you're on, you have a vehement reason for why you're on that side. If you are pro-life, no abortion, no matter what time or how viable the fetus may be, is a live being that is being killed.
You're also very wrong. But yeah,
no, but I'm saying in the mind of people who
they're
are
crazy. Yes, crazy.
No, but they're allowed to have that opinion.
They think that a man in the sky talks to them and guides their life.
Again, they're a perfectly constitutionally protected right to believe that. So,
and I stand by a statement I made earlier today. It should be easier to 5150 people, honestly. Like, if I come in and you make some argument to me in a political space that is based in the Bible, I'm like, officer, 5150, please, just take them away.
The point I'm making is the argument I could see being what overturns the precedent is that maybe some sort of line about the original precedent and the time being sort of an arbitrary date or an arbitrary amount of time, and that compelling evidence of brain activity and heart activity and blah, blah, blah has forced us to make this the new line. Because if we're going to, separate between viability and non-viability, then the argument of moving it up would just simply be going with what is being determined by better information that has come since Roe had passed. I'm not trying to say that.
No.
I'm just looking at it from the the breakdown of how this will probably happen. Is I imagine they're not going to say this is deliberately trying to torpedo Roe. They're going to say that,
this was an arbitrary date.
We all have rights to make determinations as to when this moment of viability is. Roe had been the unofficial guidepost for.
We're going to move the guidepost.
Yeah, I mean, we have more information now.
And that is when I will bring my lawsuit, because they have found teeth and gray matter and heart muscle in malignant melanomas in the liver and the stomach, pancreas. So I think if your cancer cells have brain tissue and heart tissue in them and teeth, that is almost a viable fetus. That is as much of a viable fetus as a fucking fetus at 10 weeks. So you should be forced to keep your malignant melanoma.
Okay.
And carry it to term.
I mean, I don't see who you're suing exactly, but
I'll find somebody.
You'll find somebody with the hairy tumor that you're going to.
Well, no, because remember, one of the other precedents of the Supreme Court is capable of repetition but evading review. So all you have to do is find somebody who died and or had their melanoma cut out, and they found that, and then you sue them and you say, well, yes, it doesn't affect this person, but it's capable of repetition and will escape review because they'll either have the surgery before we can get to Supreme Court or they'll die before they reach Supreme Court. So we need to have this issue heard, and then we'll have to figure out what the difference between two groups of cancerous cells that have brain matter and heart tissue are.
Sadly, I feel like there won't be a groundswell of donor support to help you get
Probably
this
not.
across
I wonder
the
if
line.
the ACLU will get behind it. They support Nazis. They won't support that. Come on. Anyway,
I love that the ACLU, in their desire to find the line on every issue, just upsets everyone.
yes.
They're the constant.
I'm okay with that, though. That's my policy on life.
I do too. I like, because like deep down, I don't want Nazis around, but at the same time, I'm like, I mean, constitutionally, there's nothing I can do. Like, they're allowed to say awful things. I can't. And why do I necessarily want to start making limits on speech? Because that's just going to accelerate limits on speech.
The first law.
But at the same time,
first law of the Book of Omar.
Indeed.
No. What's the first law of the Book of Omar?
Oh.
Man's got to have a code.
Oh, well, yes.
And the ACLU says, we defend everything.
Yeah.
So, okay. Defend my cancer's right to survive. Anyway,
moving on to other legal issues.
yes,
in the world.
I had forgotten about this next one, so why don't you go ahead and take that one too?
So,
I also don't have a picture. Sorry, guys.
Matt Gaetz, congressman from Florida, perhaps you've heard, is tied up in a little bit of trouble over the idea that he might have slept with underage women.
You may remember
and paid for it.
You may remember the bobble-headed looking gentleman from a few years ago.
Well, what exactly is his name? I don't want to get this wrong.
Oh, the associate?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't even look that up.
It's Seth something.
Yeah. It's the guy we were talking about the last
Why
week.
is it saying Seth Meyers? No, that's not what I want. Oh, probably because Seth Meyers talked about Matt Gaetz.
Listen, I don't want to say it's not Seth Meyers either. We don't know for sure. It might be Seth Meyers. Until we know for sure.
I'm just going to type in Matt Gaetz wingman, and that will give us the name, I'm sure.
Doing that live. 1 hour.
Because why not? I thought I remembered the name, and I didn't. Joel Greenberg.
There you go.
Joel Greenberg has agreed to cooperate with the feds into a sex trafficking ring that he was a part of with a Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Bad news.
There has been other talk about other Florida politicos being tied into this because he was like a election.
He's the connect. He's the connect.
He had a political office that means a lot in Florida, but doesn't actually mean a lot. Like so.
Yeah.
It's like back when the in LA when the person who was in charge of the water and power was the most powerful man in town. Like
or goddamn the highway guy. The highway guy was powerful. But wait, so listen, Corey, Matt Gaetz though.
Yeah.
He might be fine because the only thing they have is the word of this guy.
Yeah.
What he might have done.
Well, and like, Matt Gaetz was sending him Venmo transactions that he would send over later to the girls. But when Matt Gaetz was paying for it, it was, pizza and school and tuition and stuff like that. Like, nothing that's illegal to pay for.
And it's not as if he had made friends with any other convicted felons.
Well, so this is the part that's kind of funny, at least for me. Real quick, Rob, just as a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If somebody walked into your office when you were a lawyer, right?
Yes.
And said, I need legal representation.
Yes.
It's like, this is how it always starts. And then he said, do you want me to tell you if I did it or not? What is your answer?
I would say yes.
You would want to know.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to be in the weeds about it if you're trying to defend him.
Yeah. No. I mean, my policy was always like, I don't care if you're guilty or innocent, but I need to know because,
that depends on how I try this case.
Yeah.
And,
Also,
what I look for.
The worst thing is to get caught off guard with some evidence that neither of us expected of your guilt when you are guilty and I thought you were innocent the whole time. Let
me say, what if the guy said, "What do you want me to just write it down?"
There's no need to bring pen and paper into this. Why don't we just talk and I will take notes.
Is it perhaps because writing down all your crimes would be a bad idea?
Yes, it would be now you writing them down.
Yeah.
Very bad idea. Allowing somebody else to write them down, also bad unless that person is
protected by...
Yes, because now it's work product, and I don't have to ever turn that over.
Yeah.
Because I'm your attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you write this dude guilty on the first line...
Yeah.
It
Nobody
don't
ever
even
sees
matter.
that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever sees that. Except for when the state's attorney comes to talk to me, and I'm like, yeah. Sorry, you guys can't see that. I'm covering up something on my... Yeah. Does that say this dude guilty? Nope. Not what it says. Not guilty.
I'm writing a song, and I just can't get the rhyme structure right yet.
I do parodies. Are you aware?
So apparently, Matt Gaetz, when he was fishing for a pardon from Trump, got in touch with Roger Stone,
Convicted felon.
Him and Joel Greenberg decided to write down all the crimes that they would like to have a pardon for, and turn it over to Roger Stone, the most trustworthy individual on the face of the earth.
Now, wait, that's not fair because he was looking at jail time and he didn't rat anybody out. So he might be the most trustworthy person. But once you've been convicted of a felony, you are then required to comply with law enforcement. And although he got a commutation, not a pardon, right? Or did he get a pardon?
I think he got a pardon. Because I think he hadn't been sentenced yet, right?
I know some of them got commutation, some of them got pardons. I thought he had been sentenced.
Like Flynn was a commutation, I think.
Yes.
And Manafort was a commutation.
Yeah.
They were both in prison.
So, but you don't have to go to prison because you can just be...
Oh, no, Flynn didn't go to prison yet. He had like a long sentencing...
Yes.
...foray.
But so you can... Nonetheless... when you are made a part of the criminal justice system, it's basically like, we will come after you for anything.
Yeah.
Don't hide evidence from us. And if the FBI was to learn that he had, I don't know, a sheet of paper with a list of crimes on it, that's going to be on the list. That's going to be on the list of things you're going to have to produce. So also, even with a pardon or a commutation, sometimes depending on what the details are, you might have to do your probation period. You might have to do like the actions of a parolee for a while, which means that like you're showing up somewhere and he's like, hey, next time bring that sheet of paper. And if you don't, it's a violation. So don't forget it.
So yeah, we'll follow this one more as it continues. I think we said this last time, and I will continue it this time. Things aren't looking good for Matt Gaetz.
But I feel like we heard a story this week of somebody who things were looking good for.
I mean, to a degree, in the sense that they're getting another trial. The bad news, of course, is this is the 6th time for Keith Davis Jr.
But
Baltimore.
listen,
a little Baltimore corner, a little straight dope for you.
Oh wait,
you don't have to. That's all right. It didn't require the whole
news
thing.
Section. I don't know. But what the problem is, you fucked around and committed a crime in a place where Marilyn Mosby is the state's attorney, and she doesn't give up. You can take away all of her evidence.
Whoa. I mean, she gave up in the Baltimore 6 trial.
She doesn't give up on anyone but cops, all right? And you can take
the
away...
Baltimore Police Department said, here's the investigation of our own officers, and she's like, I'll use this verbatim in court.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Keith Davis, they have eliminated any video evidence.
Excuse me, Marilyn, don't you think you want to investigate a little bit on your own? No, I'm sure it's all right here in the stack. Like, why would I...
I've met with the cop, who is certainly not dirty, and the cop who investigated this. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But so Keith Davis, they have eliminated all video evidence except the video that may exonerate him, or at least facially seems to exonerate him. Primary witness, no good anymore. Yeah. Cops who did the investigation and or were involved in any way, no good anymore.
Pretty much all gone because they all were involved in the Brady violation of not including video evidence that might exonerate him.
A witness was found who did not describe the weapon that they found near him, but not on him at all.
Again, the sad for Keith Davis, but most unbelievable turn of this whole thing for progressive prosecutor Marilyn Mosby is that the only crime that he was found guilty of was the gun,
yes,
which was located near him,
Not on him.
not on him.
But shots were fired at the police, allegedly.
Right.
May have been cops firing at each other. We can't say for sure, but
It's been reported that it could possibly just be 2 rounds of cops firing at each other, but that's not good enough.
And the gun on top of the fridge certainly could not have been a drop gun that Baltimore police never carried with them.
I mean, absolutely none of this sounds like reasonable doubt to me.
Yes.
I'm a distinguished legal mind, and I have a fine sense of what is and what is not reasonable doubt. I hope Keith Davis Jr. gets out, and I hope he sues the city of Baltimore for an ungodly sum.
We know how much you get for one trial. How much do you get for 6 trials?
And more than anything, I really do hope that that he continues to find himself in not good health, because he's not in good health at this moment. He still has a bullet in him. I don't know if people know that. But I hope that he finds himself free and allowed to survive at the end of this whole thing, so that he can find a significant payday from.
So here's the fucked up thing. The trial.
This is the
well, it's
pull
all
up a seat, children. The fucked up part's coming.
The more fucked up thing is that he barely survived trial prep and trial last time. He had a medical incident right before sentencing.
Yeah.
Or right before the jury came back the last time.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how much Marilyn Mosby's like, I could put this dude in the grave. I could put him in the grave.
I think sadistically, I think that's the hope. Rather,
he'll die innocent, but he'll die, and
he'll die in prison. That's the your hope for any criminal who commits a serious crime like this, who gets years that would line up with fucking Bernie Madoff died in prison.
Yep.
But he also got 150 years. So the hope was he was going to die in prison. The hope wasn't he wasn't going to make it to 230 or whatever.
Keith Davis got 150 years too.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, he got 6 years.
Yeah, but then the probation violation of him being near a gun,
which
is what he got because they found him guilty of that one gun charge. Is the undoing of it all.
Was that the first trial? No, that was the second trial.
That was the second trial because they brought that into the second trial.
Right, because they
that was the third trial. God, it's so fucking difficult.
Yeah, it's the third trial because he got hung jury.
And then the second one was just the one
charge,
just for the gun.
Yeah,
and then in the third trial they brought in the all the stuff that has to do with him violating parole.
So just keep in mind, he's been in jail this whole time. So they convinced a judge for remand.
They were trying
between trials on appeal.
There were a lot of criminals who got out of prison for a while during COVID.
Yeah, not the guy with the bullet.
Guy with the bullet in his neck, but everyone else. So
danger to the community, Corey.
Apparently,
yeah.
Apparently, the guy who has trouble breathing is a danger to the community.
Yeah, I again, the fucked up thing about this is another fucked up thing about this.
Of the many fucked up things.
If he had taken the deal that they offered him first, he would be out of jail now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, they offered him like 13 years. You do half of that, 3/4 of that, and get out on parole.
Yeah.
He's been in jail for like 20 years, or pushing 20 years now, right?
Oh, it's not that long. No.
2004, 2005, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, I felt like it was that much.
No, it was Marilyn Mosby the whole time. So
it feels like it's been so long.
Yeah.
But I mean, what, 2009, 10?
2015.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, still again.
So it's like an annual event to have the trial of Keith Davis Jr.
So, but 2015, right? So he gets 13 years. He agrees to 13 years.
Yeah.
He probably serves half of that, like 6. He's very near the end when COVID hits at 5 years. And they're like, okay, well, we'll let him out. So he would be out, if nothing else, probably
assuming good
COVID.
Behavior and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, he's in a chair, so I would assume good behavior. Yeah, he would be out for all intents and purposes by now. But now he's going to go back to another trial where, again, she's going to try to put him in the ground instead of putting him in jail because she can't put him in jail. There's no evidence unless you get 12 white people who are just like, I mean, clearly he did it. Look at his skin tone.
I just feel like we're going to one day people are going to come to us and just be like, how the fuck could Marilyn Mosby hang on for so long? And we're just going to be like, dude, I don't know. It was just like she survived everything and did terrible job throughout the entire, like, it's not like she did a really bang up job prosecuting all the cops who killed Freddie Gray. Like, it was like
I'll remind you, Sheila Dixon nearly won the mayorship back.
Oh, I know. I know. I get it.
And Catherine Pugh beat her.
Yeah.
While she was defrauding the city. So,
But people didn't know that at the time. They just assumed there was foul play involved.
I assumed. I don't know if everybody did. Yeah. I mean, Brandon Scott is probably the first good guy mayor we've had, and I don't feel like he can get anything done. Or, I haven't heard of any like major changes.
I mean, I have faith that Scott is capable of doing things. I just don't know if he's the like, he might have the ideas, but he doesn't have the means by which to communicate it. Like,
well, no, you and I came to the realization too that Baltimore's under consent decree now, so there are no major changes you can make with the police department.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you got to get those approved. So money's still got to go to the cops. They get their budgets. You can cut overtime theoretically, but like, not really.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of thing is like, they're not going to work their regular shift. They're only going to work the overtime.
Yeah.
So, like, all these cops who don't know how to work a regular shift are going to be confused when they show up at 8 a.m. and go like, wait, this place is open this early?
I didn't realize that.
I thought it was only open this early for people who were working all night, getting the overtime.
Who's in the police station at 8 a.m.? Well, the guys that started at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
They're carrying over to overtime, right? Like,
the guys whose regular shift ended at 4 o'clock and they decided to work overtime until 8 the next morning.
Yeah. And on
but
10.
not work the regular time.
Right.
Just say they did, which is an important part of
they show up at
getting
3.
all the overtime you can.
Show up at 2 or 3.
You don't
get
waste
arrested.
working hour. You don't waste your working ability on the regular time. You just wait until it's time and a half, and then
show up at 2 or 3, get an arrest, and that'll lock you in until 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then all that overtime. So
and then have to chase down leads regarding your arrest. You could find a way to make this last forever if you wanted to.
The evidence may spoil. You don't understand. We got to go out right now and chase down these leads for our 3% conviction rate. Yeah.
I heard Pookie's on the corner. I got to go right now.
There's 19 guys in this city named Pookie. Who are you talking about?
There's 19 guys on that corner named Pookie.
By the way,
right.
I love a Baltimore accent. I don't know if I said that before, but I rediscovered the Aaron irons his iron with iron or whatever. And the guy being like, yo, we talk like that? It's the greatest thing ever. Anyway. So I'm gonna let's
no time for any more Baltimore news. So you're gonna have to wait next week until we get cicada talk.
Oh yes, and they'll be around, so it's fine. They'll be
time.
worse than ever next week. But so
of course I'm gonna be right home when the cicadas hit.
Oh yeah, that's right. By the way, you are going home next week, right?
Yes, end of next week.
Oh, the end of next week.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're gonna have next
so
week's
it's
episode.
like we'll have to figure out some sort of.
So 2 weeks from now, there's likely to be a pre-recorded episode.
Or some evergreen content of some sort.
Maybe we'll have our 7-hour Israel discussion then.
Let's not.
But
Let's not. I already imagine that there's a lot of people angry at me at this moment.
Probably.
And I didn't even say anything that bad.
I wonder what the
It's probably because I wasn't strong enough in my conviction.
If we polled people who are more angry at me or you based on our positions, I would gather that it's probably more people are like, that was some lukewarm bullshit, Corey. I don't know.
You don't have a lot of support, but the support you have is fervent.
Very much so.
I don't have a lot of support, and nobody cares greatly about it.
I mean, judging by the polls that I put on my Instagram.
Here I am. I'll stay by myself in the perhaps we shouldn't kill each other camp. That's just, maybe I'm a radical.
Yeah, take that stand. All right, so quickly, COVID update for the week. Guys, I don't know if you're excited, but I am excited. We have hit 50% of people in the United States have gotten at least one. We're going to round up to 50% of people in the United States have gotten one shot. We're going to round up to 40% that have gotten both shots or all the shots that they need. So isn't that exciting, Corey? Yes, 50% if we round up a lot of percents. If we use like elementary rounding, which is 5 and up versus 4 and down.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than 0% vaccinated.
And if you remember, Corey was very excited 4 weeks ago when we hit 40% fully vaccinated and 30%. And it only took us 2 months to get to that point. So,
I mean, right now it's clear that the vaccinations have been slowing because the people who really wanted to get the shot have, for the most part, gotten the shot.
Displayed by the graph right next to Corey right now.
Yeah.
This starkly going up and then plateauing graph. It looks almost like COVID cases from last year.
I mean, actually, it's not too far off. It's I'm gonna say this to people. There is no reasonable reason why everyone shouldn't be getting the vaccine. I understand hypothetically how some people are nervous about the science of it, and they think that it was rushed out, and I'd rather other people get it first and make sure that they don't grow fins and stuff like that. But we're about as good as we can get from a good news standpoint on the vaccine at this point.
You got any fins or gills or anything?
Mm-mm.
And you're what, like a month out from shot 2, right? So yeah, close enough.
I mean, and Rachel even had it like a month and a half before me, and she ain't got nothing.
Well, nothing she didn't have before. She's from Dundalk, so some of those mutations were.
I mean, the web toes were there before.
Nothing you can do about that.
So you can.
That's a shit
swim
plant, not Moderna.
So you can swim in River Bagneck Road or whatever.
I really hope she's watching.
This will never get to her.
It's okay. Go ahead.
4 people listen to this show.
One of them is not your girlfriend. So there you go.
That's the level of support. No, I mean, like, really, I remember a year ago at this point, everyone's locked down. We're all not liking it. And I'm talking to my family and stuff like that back home. And I said, I have faith in scientists and the health community and the pharmaceutical community to figure out a way to get us out of this. And I think that with a little bit of luck and with the right kind of determination, we can come up with a solution that'll help rid us of the serious side effects of COVID, and with enough participation can rid us of COVID in totality. And everyone, when I would say that, would be like, oh man, that'll be so sweet if we get to that day. And now a year later, we're at that day. And those same people, not my family, the other people I will talk to will just be like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, do you really trust it? I'm just like, yes, just fucking take the shot. I don't know what. Here's to me, the thing that worries me, the mask mandates have been rolled back in a lot of places. California being one of the few places where the mask mandate continues. New York, I think, is another one. Although I think theirs is ending next week, if I heard so correctly.
Yeah.
I personally, if I was an unvaccinated person and I was living in a place that had opened itself up a lot more, I would be doing what I can to get the vaccine. And then if I hadn't already at this point, and then shutting it down for a while, the best I could, until I get to the end of my recovery from the shot, and the 2 weeks out and everything like that, and then perhaps go back to living my life as I did prior to COVID. But it just, the amount of people who are I worried a lot about people who would hear various things about masks, especially outdoors, and then turned it into angry, violent confrontations with people who have nothing to do with it. And then we see videos like Ricky Schroeder yelling at a Costco.
I was going to say child TV stars doing that thing. Yeah.
Like the guy who didn't make the mask mandate, didn't come up with the policy for Costco, isn't even the manager of the store that decides whether like he's just literally there. He just works there. Like the person who works at Dunkin' Donuts and asks you to put on a mask is not the person who decided it. She's just
everybody.
Like it's we need to just fucking like when we are on the other side of this whole thing. When COVID is no longer a thought that is high on our minds. I'm still going to have a hard time getting over the people who just did not give a fuck whatsoever about anybody else other than themselves or what they wanted to do or their own self-interest.
I mean, once I don't have to worry about dying, I'm going to start my plans on, making a virus that will kill off all the dumb people. So
it's just
I understand mRNA a lot now. That's dangerous for all of you.
I would need to. I would really hope that just people who are listening to me who are hesitant about getting the vaccine know that it's going about as well as a vaccine rollout can go. The side effects have been very minimal.
Very.
I mean, like, a light sickness maybe for some people for a couple days.
There was a story about a guy who shit his pants at work, which I thought was very funny. But I also...
It's endearing because who hasn't been there?
Yeah.
I mean...
Also, though, I feel like I know that guy because he's probably the guy at his computer like, it's going to be a situation in like 5 minutes. Ooh! And then that was, nope, just happened right now. Okay, cool. All right, yeah.
I mean, it is such a weird place we find ourselves in the middle of the pandemic. I never thought I would say those words. Like, here we are living through the pandemic. When I was a child, I never thought like, oh, one day I'll live through a pandemic. Like, like
I wrote a paper on it in 3rd grade. So,
I mean, there have been people who have been thinking about it. Thank God, because we needed some people who were thinking about it. But
and clearly, I'm using that training, knowledge, and experience in my everyday life.
Yeah,
just like the paper I wrote in 1st grade about how the Iraq conflict could lead to World War III.
Just getting Tekashi them bills. Let's secure the bag for Tekashi.
I've wasted my life
so far.
All the talent.
I would say that the good news is that a lot of the relaxation of the mask mandates has to go with the data. Rob is going to argue with me now. The data that has been gathered by the CDC and others to make the determination that exterior transmission, outside transmission is far less than or is far less dangerous than indoor transmission. Things that I think most reasonable people would have understood a long time ago.
I don't disagree with that. I just think also that the CDC saw y'all putting gasoline in Walmart bags after they spent 18 months trying to keep us safe, and they said, fuck it. Nobody cares anyway. Just take it. Like
the vaccinated people have it. Let's just...
I'm going to guess everybody putting gasoline in Walmart bags isn't vaccinated. Everybody else is probably vaccinated. We're probably dead, so.
There is a real chance that even as a vaccinated person, you can get it. Bill Maher got it.
Yeah.
Several members of the New York Yankees are out because they got COVID. Absolutely none of them,
all asymptomatic,
were not showing any kind of symptoms or any kind of health problems. All of them were caught because Major League Baseball and HBO required that everyone take regular COVID tests even after vaccination, and they found it. And
you know who doesn't require regular testing after vaccination?
Regular everyday people,
which is why I think that the data is bullshit. But that's me arguing with Corey about the data. It's just like, how many times have you been tested since you got vaccinated?
Since I got vaccinated?
Mm-hmm.
None yet. Once?
You had one work. You had the one job that you had to get tested for.
Oh, well, I guess.
I mean, that was kind
of... No,
I
got 2 there.
Yeah.
I got 2 right away there.
But for the one job, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hypothetically, if I had a job, on Friday, I would get a test tomorrow just to make sure everything's okay. Like, I wouldn't go on set without getting a test.
I mean, I'm getting tested twice a week. So, and I'll continue to get tested twice a week, but I'm in the Bill Maher territory of there are people shooting basically like 3 times a week at my work. So, they'll catch it just hey, I'm asymptomatic. I have no idea, but yeah, I guess.
I mean, I again, I just feel bad for well-meaning people who are worried about what the vaccine could potentially mean in the future, who are avoiding getting the shot and then are putting themselves in the jackpot to get the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Like, if you think it's all fake and you don't want to get the vaccine because this is all, the U.S. created in a lab with China and whatever conspiracy theory is floating around this week, whatever Dan Bongino is talking about, a man who can really get engagement on Facebook but can't win an election.
For the life of him cannot win an election.
Because literally, I think the Baltimore Sun headline was Dan Bongino curb stomped an election that he runs.
But by the way, one of the stories is that the COVID vaccine could cause sterility. And there was a movie with Clive Owen a few years ago where like human beings couldn't procreate anymore. Listen, I don't plan on procreating or anymore, if that has happened. Question mark. But also, let's just say that it led to some health crisis 20 years in the future. What you're telling me is all the people on Facebook now who are not getting the vaccine are going to be the ones to survive that crisis. And you're telling me that I should also want to survive the crisis so that I am left in a world full of those people. Listen, kill myself with the vaccine or kill myself with a rope then. One way or another, my life's ending, so I might as well just avoid COVID at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't want to be stuck in a world full of red pillars. Yeah, no, I'm okay. Also, that's mostly bullshit, and people are crazy. Although I will say, the one story from SNL this week, like, IBM announces the world's smallest and most powerful microchip. Like, not now. Come on. Because I just know all of the QAnon boards like lit up. Like, see, they're putting it right in our faces.
What worries me more than anything is somebody like at like Google I/O decides to make a joke tomorrow.
Please don't.
And they're just like, we've been doing really well with the vaccine. I mean, the rollout of Android 12. And then like all of a sudden that goes around like all over Facebook and it's just like, see?
Yeah, I just want to say to
fucking
Google.
Silicon Valley. Now's not the time to joke.
To Apple in a few months, to Windows at some point this summer. We're not at joking time yet. It's like there will be a time
when there's 0 cases in the United States. Maybe that's when we can make jokes. Maybe.
I would say that I was told this week that a 9/11 joke was still in bad taste. It's been 20 years.
I guess it depends on the joke. Don't repeat it though.
I'm not gonna repeat it. But I was told a 9/11 joke was not in good taste. I feel like this is also something that we should not joke about.
I mean, I guess it depends on what we're counting as a 9/11. I literally did as Dick Cheney alive ? Here on the podcast. So
yeah, I feel like that's more of the Emperor Palpatine, who you don't know who that is dead or alive joke, less a 9/11 joke.
Yeah,
mine was about Bush and 9/11, which I thought was even funny on 9/12, but
yeah, I can see how it didn't land.
No, they didn't find it funny. But before we go, there's one other story. Hang on, let me go back to that image, just because I want to say that there have been influential people who have listened to the podcast before. Clearly, people in Florida, people in Texas, all around the country. Trump administration, for the most part, seem to not be listeners. I don't have any idea why that might have been, but clearly, somebody in the Biden administration is listening to the podcast because they heard me chastise them about not sharing the vaccine that we're not even using.
Oh, that's why they did it.
With anyone in the world. And they were
Thank you, Rob.
You know what? This guy, gifted and talented. They looked up my resume. Gifted and talented programs early on. Genius IQ. Got nothing going on in his life. Clearly, the talent has been wasted, but that doesn't mean he's not right. Also about Israel and Palestine.
They're right. I was gonna say they're literally writing up the job offer, and then all of a sudden it's just like, so here's my opinions on Palestine.
Yeah. Maybe we should give Hamas nukes. A what?
Maybe that's enough internet for today.
First of all, this podcast, the last 6 years of it, is why I'm not getting a job offer from a lot of people.
I've basically written off the thing that I'll ever get confirmed by the Senate at any point in my life.
Listen, I could run for president. I'm not sure the Senate would confirm the vote.
I'll sit down at the table and they'll just be like, on episode number 40, you know what? I'll just see myself out. I don't need to be HUD secretary that bad. I'll be
not gonna be good. Not gonna be good. But yeah, so somebody's listening to the podcast. So clearly, the U.S. has decided we are going to share the AstraZeneca vaccine. And here's the long con that Trudeau, is it still Trudeau? I think in Canada is playing. He said, we need the AstraZeneca vaccine. But Canada is doing just as well as we are with vaccines. But what they are also doing is sharing vaccines with countries.
Are they? I thought they were way behind us right now. I mean, Ontario is like a fucking war zone.
Well, they've done this thing where they have tried to inoculate people at risk at the same rate. So, like, if it was found that white people were going up to the First Nations area, then they would not allow those people to get vaccinated. So they're at like 27% or something like that of the national population. No, what's their rate?
4.6%
of the per capita.
Yeah, percentage of population fully vaccinated.
Oh, wow. Well, nonetheless, maybe then it's
the numbers have spiked up a lot here, I guess, in the last week or so, because it's 18.4 million doses given to 1.41 fully vaccinated.
Oh, all right.
So, I mean, as opposed to the U.S., 274 million people. By the way, we have a lot more people.
Yeah, because we have way more.
274 million doses given and 123 million fully vaccinated.
Listen,
so that's a 37.6% rate.
If Manny Machado went to any point on the Canadian border and threw a baseball, most of the people of Canada live within where that baseball would fall.
Yeah, I mean, like,
there ain't people up north. It's a lot of land, but not.
I think Calgary and Winnipeg's a little far from the border, but I get where you're.
Ain't a lot of people live there either. It's like a cowboy town, right? Like that's Saskatchewan.
My favorite airport ever was the Saskatoon International Airport in Saskatchewan.
Saskatoon. Didn't I say that? Yeah. Saskatchewan. Yes.
Because it was literally just like a big room. It was. It's like it used to be the conference room of a Ramada, and they just tore everything else down.
Build runway.
And now they have like 2 runways that go in. But because the planes go from there to Alaska, it's an international airport. I don't know if you know how that works.
Yep, crossing lines. That's all that matters.
What was that Maryland airport that like tried to like fly to Canada once? And it's like the friendly international airport or something.
Yes. It's in Bowie. Is it in Bowie?
Something like that.
Yes, but because they do fly to Canada. Back off, Bowie. By the way, somebody said that was... Is it Bowie?
No, it's Bowie.
It's Bowie.
Yeah.
Because I've said Bowie, and people were like, nah, I don't know about that. I'm like, yeah, it's Bowie.
It's one of those things that because like everyone associates it with that spelling being Bowie, like Bowie knife or David Bowie.
Yes.
Like they think that it's Bowie, but the way it's pronounced is Bowie.
Yes. It's Bowie, like the thing that floats in the ocean.
I always hated too whenever I showed people like... because like people in Maryland couldn't say Maryland towns.
Yeah.
So they'd always get Bowie wrong. They'd always get Towson wrong.
Towson.
Hofstra would play Towson in college football and stuff like that. Meeting of the powerhouses.
Of the D4 NCAA champions, yes.
I think we're in the E level.
Yeah.
the Elevation 5 level.
The Colonial League.
But like I would hear New Yorkers be like Townsend, and I'm like, oh no, sorry,
no N.
It's a weird one, Towson.
Yeah.
And they'd see Bowie, and they'd do the same, like Bowie. So.
Yeah, no. But Marylanders also can't pronounce it, so I don't know what to tell them about that. Salisbury, not Salisbury. Yeah. No.
Every place has something like that, though.
Everybody can pronounce Ocean City, especially the people on the West Coast or the Western Shore who like to come and clog the roads.
For the first year we lived here, it was really fun to watch Rachel try and say La Cienega.
When you say the first few years, you mean it is still funny to hear? Because what she'll do is she'll be like, oh, La Cienega. Like, I got to think about it. I'm going to think about it because you're not going to make a fool out of me. I live on Cahuenga.
Time to show you my trick.
Yeah.
La Cienega.
Ooh. Yeah, but just ask her rapid fire. She can't get it. But, fuck, where was I going with that? Oh, so
Canada's not doing well with the vaccinations.
Apparently not. Worse than I thought. But they also are not giving out the AstraZeneca vaccine because of concerns with things that probably shouldn't be that big of a concern when you only have 8% of your population vaccinated.
Three.
What's that?
3%
fully vaccinated. But what they are doing is they will ship vaccines that they're not using to other countries. And so they are... my guess is they are accepting AstraZeneca from the U.S. because the U.S. will not ship to brown countries, only to white countries. And then they're just going to turn in, what did you call it? First Nations Give? Yeah, First Nations Givers, which is the political correct way of also not being politically correct.
I don't know what you're saying. I didn't say nothing, man.
I think I actually
You're digging your own grave there.
But they're going to take the AstraZeneca vaccine and then immediately ship it to a country which, like India, which would say, we don't care. Give us a vaccine.
Literally any vaccine will do.
Now, ironically, I think India might be doing better than Canada, so maybe Canada should be using that vaccine themselves. Per capita, I don't know, because India's got so many people. It may not be.
Let's see here.
Searching.
Oh, they are below 3. Wait, no. 4. Wait a minute. Why is this number different? Oh, worldwide. 3.3%.
3% of 1.3 billion people, as opposed to 3% of 15 million people.
Yeah, I mean, India has given about 2/3 the amount of vaccines that America has.
Yes.
And has 34% less vaccinated.
Yes. And
34% of the population less vaccinated.
Canada has given about 2/3 of the vaccines that California has, and has about the same population.
I mean, we are really doing well. I mean,
yeah.
The UK is at 30%, which is I thought it was going to be higher. The way I've heard people talking about people getting vaccinated out there, like it seemed like. I mean, it's not a big country, too.
Yeah. I mean, also...
20 million fully vaccinated on 56 million doses given.
I have been vocal on this podcast to not be a fan of capitalism. However, when you have a CVS and Walgreens on every other corner in every town in America, it makes it a lot easier than like everybody having to go to the National Health
Do you ever
Service.
see the video about that?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna have to show you something really cool after this.
Okay.
But we gotta go because
we've been 90 minutes.
We've been running too late.
Yes.
And when you run too late, you find yourself over at OhTheAnthem.com. Corey at OhTheAnthem.com. With the Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. Hey, remember me last week making promises and not living up to them? It'll be rectified this week, which is the same thing that a liar says every time they say.
I was say that feels like the same thing, Corey. I don't know.
I'm trying. But there will be a video that will follow it shortly thereafter that explains how my ADHD riddled brain keeps me from being able to get things done, and how I try and get past it, and how despite not being a benefit in any other workplace in the history of the world, somehow it is a benefit in film, and therefore
is it though?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
As you make excuses on not posting videos week after week?
Well, that's my personal thing. That's not somebody else's. It's not. The reason why I do that is because I get lost up in the research for the project that I'm already finished writing. That's the. I'm so good at the work that I'm too thorough. That's the problem. Anyway, if you want to find more of me, Facebook.com/Corey Baker Film, at LegendsCB5, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
And you can find me on social media at Robert and Cheek. As you know, I make no promises about any content because fuck you guys. I made a lot of content. Nobody watched it. So I got stuff. I'll edit it eventually. Also, I work like 65, 70-hour weeks. So usually don't feel like doing anything except for playing Call of Duty at the end of the day. But you can find me on there. Ankukeris. It's ANKOUKERYS. 3 different words. If you want to find me on Activision, and I play Black Ops Cold War and Modern Warfare 2019. So come find me and let's play zombies. Since friend of the show, Roberto, who, by the way, you might have heard us mention, would be back this week to do producing duties. Roberto, Oh yes, yeah.
Should I flip a camera?
Not back yet. And do you want to take odds that he's going to be back for next week's episode?
I would think so.
You have more faith in humanity than I do. That's understandable. Also, producer Brooke's not with us, which is somewhat sad, but also, you know.
But don't have to worry about him getting into anything.
Yes, the warden finally allowed him to get some some R&R time. So
Took him out of the hole.
from one cell to another. But nonetheless, we'll see if they come back, I guess, next week.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
Wait. See, I can't do two things at once. This is why we need a producer. I wonder if he could produce from Mexico. We've done something. I don't know if it's good. That's my line.
Certainly know it's not good.
Line. Wait, first of all, I think we did very good. I made a very vocal argument, and someday I made People's Exhibit number 237. So, I mean, someday when I'm thinking back on this, being judged by a jury of my peers, I will have to come to recompense and still have no regret at all.
Here I am trying to be Tom Hayden, and there you are trying to be
The Joker.
Joker. Basically.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's about it.
Wait. So where do we live? So, what was my
I
line?
think we've done good here today. We've done something.
But as always, you're listening to the O the Anthem podcast, part of the O the Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
So are we canceled now, or?
You're canceled.
Is this what canceled feels like?
That lukewarm position on Israel and Palestine is going to get you canceled. Or Me Too'd, one or the other.
Or both.
Or both.